I was trying to get them to join our organization or learn about an issue that we were working on there. And I remember the story that I often tell, which is this one group was called the Purple Passion Senior Club. And that was really their name. And they were a senior club or social club that wanted to start getting involved in kind of advocacy issues. And they were part of a huge, and I mean huge, Baptist church on the south side of Chicago. I mean, the church had like 5,000 people showing up for every service on a Sunday. Huge. And it was this giant church. And the senior group met once a month, like in the hall. And they invited me to come, and so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to I knew them. One of the people, the president of the club was a board member, so she had invited me to come. And so as I was preparing to take the bus there and thinking about it, I thought, well, I know her. And she was a very proper, formal woman with, always wore gloves and heels and very done up. But I didn't, I thought, well, that's her. That was her. So I'm dressed kind of like this, maybe a little less, pant. I mean, I wasn't wearing holy jeans or anything, but I was like pretty informal. And I had never been to this place before. And I walk in to the room and I look around. Now this is not on a Sunday, but this is in their church. And it was jam-packed, hundreds of seniors, and they were all wearing hats and gloves and like their Sunday finest. And I flipped. I just thought, oh my God, what am I doing? They're going to think that I am like the most disrespectful person in the world because I wasn't dirty, but I was like I didn't feel right. And not that they cared. In the end, it was not them who cared at all about how I was dressed. They weren't there to see if I was going to win in a fashion contest. They were there to hear what I had to say. But I felt completely underdressed and disrespectful, and I couldn't get over it. So the whole time I was speaking, I was like nervous and shaking and just like feeling like, oh God, this is like so embarrassing, I can't wait to get off of here. And that's what I mean about being prepared and making sure that you're as comfortable as possible. It's not, the dress is kind of not the most important thing, but I use that as an example of knowing where you're going and who the audience is, and kind of what their protocols are, is very helpful in kind of preparing you, even subliminally, so that you can be as connected to the audience as possible before you start your presentation. It'll make you more comfortable, and it'll make them more comfortable. So any thoughts or comments or questions about that? People kind of agree? That helps. All right. The other thing is to get wherever you're going, whether it's to Sacramento to testify at a hearing or to your local center to make a presentation, get there early. This is not always easy to do. And I say this all the time and should, take my own advice because I never give myself enough time, it seems. But it's important to be there, for me especially, and probably for you, to check the place out. Like, are you going to be a speaker? What's the mood of the room when you walk in? If you're the last speaker after like an hour and a half, I'll tell you, if you're going to a senior center and you're the last speaker after an hour and a half of presentation and lunch is coming in minutes, you might as well like throw in the towel. Or at least not take it personally when people are not paying that much attention, because they're like kind of done and they're ready for lunch. Never speak during lunch at a senior center. That's the other thing. Just, if they offer that time slot to you, say, is there any way I could come before or, enough after so that people aren't taking their nap after lunch? And that's a huge generalization, but generally speaking, before lunch is much better if you're speaking to a group of seniors. I've learned that because that's my primary audience for the speaking that I do. But also, if it's a long program and you're at the end, then you might want to think about adjusting what you're going to say, or pepping it up, or having everybody kind of stretch before you speak, or move around a little bit, so they're not falling asleep when it's your turn to speak. So going early to sort of see how many heads are nodding before it's your turn is a good, it gives you a sense of what the mood of the audience is. And also, if that's where you have to speak, then that's when you have to speak. But you don't have to feel like they don't care about what you're saying alone. That maybe that's part of it. But it's also because they've had enough. And it's not that what you have to say is uninteresting or not being presented well. The other thing is to see, like, if you've checked in advance and called the place to find out kind of how it's going to be set up and if there's going to be a stage or what kind of accommodations there are, that's helpful. But until you really see it, you're not really sure how it's all going to work. So getting there a little early and seeing where you're going to speak from. Is there like a big podium that they're expecting the speakers to be behind? Well, if that's the case and you're in a chair, you don't want to get behind the podium because no one will see you. So you need to be able to see if there's a way for you to get like to the side of the podium so that when you're in the front of the room, but you're visible to folks. This is true for people who are short as well. Senator Boxer, for example, who is very short, always asks whenever she's going to go speak somewhere if there's a box that she can stand on, because she gets lost behind the podium. And so she's a very good, powerful speaker, but when you're down like this, how powerful can you be when no one can see you and hear you because you can't project? So she knows that about herself, and that's what her staff does, is they make sure that they're accommodating her so that she can be as effective as possible. And you all need to think about that too, especially if you're lower for whatever reason, short or in a chair or whatever, that you don't use the podium, you use the side so that people can see you and that you're accessible to the folks who you're speaking to, because that's really, really important. You want to make a connection. And as I said at the beginning, you are all, I know without even hearing one of you say one word, better speakers than anybody who would study the issue that you're going to be speaking about, because you live it. And there is nothing like hearing someone speak from their gut. But you have to be able to connect with folks in order to make that impression. So you want to make yourself as open and close to your audience as you possibly can. And then if you get there early enough, you can try to relax a little bit before they call your name up to speak. Practice breathing. There's some tricks which I don't have time really to go through now. Maybe if we have time at the end, I'll show you a couple that a friend of mine who's a theater director used to help me teach this class, and he taught us some breathing exercises that help you kind of slow down that pop, 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 pop that happens before you start speaking. Because when that happens, you get short of breath, and so you don't project as well. But also, when you get nervous, you start moving, not talking from your diaphragm, and you're kind of like talking from your throat, and it gets harder to hear. I mean, these are all very technical things, but he taught us some tricks like with little straws or stir sticks that you often get with your coffee to like hide in the corner and breathe in them, to sort of regulate your breathing before you go on so that your voice can be a little more, less breathy and scared sounding, because then you don't come across as well. And there's other kinds of breathing things you can do just to try and calm yourself down if you're the person who gets nervous, which I do, and I'm guessing most of you have had those flutters if you've had to speak. All right, so those are just some tricks about getting ready. So any thoughts or comments before I move on to then getting started? Okay. So this is key. Whether you're going to the Board of Supervisors or to a community center, wherever, how you start your presentation sets the tone for the whole thing. The whole thing. So you need to make sure that before you say word one, you are ready. So that because if you start talking before you're ready and before the audience is with you, they'll be catching up the whole time. The whole time. So you have all the time in the world. And this is going to be the hardest lesson for all of you to learn. And it feels really weird, but I'm going to show it to you, and then when we practice later, you're going to see what I mean. Often you're either at what do they call those things on the stage? The dais, right, or dais, or however you say that, or they're going to call you and you're going to come up to the place where you're going to speak. Or you're going to go to the podium at the city hall or the state capitol, and you have to get yourself there. So however it is that you get to the point where you're going to speak, the starting point, you want to, once they call your name, walk over there, or wheel yourself over there, however you're getting over there, get there. If you have materials that you're using, put them down. We don't have a podium here, which I probably should have asked for and didn't think about it so we could practice with one. Put your materials, if you have them, down in a place where you can see them and they're situated. This is all before you say anything. Move the microphone or grab the microphone so that you can adjust it to your height and to your mouth. You might even, go like this and test it. Just everybody comes across differently on microphones. And once you have done all of that and you're sort of firmly planted, then, and only then, do you say, "Good morning. My name is Jody Reed, and I'm here to speak to you about the proposed cuts to the IHSS budget." Do not start until you get there. So what often happens is that you get introduced, or you're the next one in line, and so you're moving there, and it's hard, again, to do this without the podium, but let's pretend this is the podium here. I'll use this because that's lit up. All right, so